Okay, welcome everyone. So today we are going to begin with one of the most well-read, popular chapters of Daniel. When you think of Daniel, if you want to tell a story about Daniel, what is the story that you will tell people? You know, Daniel
in the lion's den.
in the lion's den, right? But there is a whole history behind that. How did Daniel end up there? And what age was Daniel? Right? We know that after the Babylonian captivity, Daniel was about 15 years when he was brought there after the 70 years, and now the first year of the rule of Darius. We just saw in the 9th chapter, it was still the first year of Darius. So Darius just came, and Daniel is about 85 years old, and Daniel had a vision. And now we are still in the first year of Darius. All right. So in the first year, a new king has taken over. Now, in your experience, you all worked with big companies, right? Whenever a new CEO comes or a senior vice president comes, what is the first thing they will do? They will do something called a reorg. Does that sound familiar? Right. So they will see how they want to set up their leadership, how they want to set up their directors, their managers. Maybe the other person had it in a good way, it doesn't matter, but every person wants to come and then do his own way of leadership. Now, this new king came, he wanted to do a reorg in the Babylonian Empire after taking over the Babylonian Empire. Right now, it is part of the Medo-Persian Empire. So let us go to Daniel 6. We came from 9 back to 6 according to the chronology. So what kind of reorg did Darius do? Let's just see 6 from 1 to 3. Daniel 6, 1 to 3. Anybody can read that?
తన రాజ్యం అంతటిపైన
Yes, go ahead, please.
రజని చదువు.
తన రాజ్యం అంతటిపైన అధిపతులుగా ఉండుటకై 120 మంది అధిపతులను నియమించుటకు దర్యావేషునకు ఇష్టమాయెను. వారిపైన 3 ప్రధానులుగా నియమించెను. ఆ 3 దానియేలు ముఖ్యుడు. రాజునకు నష్టము కలగకుండునట్లు ఆ అధిపతులు తప్పకుండా వీరికి లెక్కలు ఒప్పచెప్పవలనని ఆజ్ఞ ఇచ్చెను. ఈ దానియేలు అతి శ్రేష్టమైన బుద్ధిగలవాడై ప్రధానులలోను అధిపతులలోను ప్రఖ్యాతి నొందియుండెను గనుక రాజ్యమంతటి మీద అతను నియమింపవలనని రాజు ఉద్దేశించెను.
Thank you very much. You see, even in a typical organization, if there are, let's say, 500 people in the organization, and here, in a kingdom, there are so many people, right? So many cities, so many provinces. So he gathered everything, meaning he looked over everything that is there, and then he set up how many? 120 satraps, right? Like presidents, 120 of them, right? So you can think of them as managers, right? Over small teams. So these were satraps. They were presidents over smaller communities that were there. And the hierarchical system was set up during this time. You can see here how they set it up, right? The Medo-Persians, right? So they set up satraps who were like in charge, like presidents, managers, whatever you want to think. 120 of them, because there were several provinces. So he did not want one person to control too much, otherwise you will be out of control, right? And then over them 3 governors, right? Which means that if you have 120 people, then each governor, how many people report to that governor? If you have 120 presidents and 3 governors, right? 40. Right? 40 each. So it's a typical hierarchy. right? But why did he do that? So that the king would suffer no loss. You know, why is it that in a company they have these managers? Why doesn't everybody report to the, let's say, vice president? You know, there should be accountability even at the lower level. And he will not be able to oversee the accountability of that many people. Humanly, it's not possible, right? There might be places where he misses some people. And that way, there will be, no accountability in certain areas, no productivity in certain areas, right? And so that is why they established the hierarchy. So to ensure that even these presidents are doing their job, over them there are governors, right? And over the governors, it's like a prime minister, so that there is no loss. In this case, the king would only think about revenue, right? They don't work for him. This is not, any other organization. This is revenue, tax revenue, whatever needs to come from the people, right? So ensure that those collections happen properly, even at the lower level. So he appointed those satraps, and over them 3 governors, so that there is no dishonesty there. Over them a prime minister, over that is the king, right? So 3 governors. You see how high Daniel is elevated. He's elevated to a governor level, not even a satrap, above those satraps. That is how, again, this is the first year of that Darius. And he must have relied on people telling, who are the best people here. He may have interviewed them, right? And he found Daniel to be extremely capable, good leader. Right? Daniel was an excellent statesman. When we look back at the Bible times and see, did God's people also work in government jobs? Yes, Joseph, Daniel, to an extent, even Moses, right? He worked in Pharaoh's court before he ran away, right? So they worked in government work also, because people say, if you are working in that higher position, government work, how can you still be faithful to the law of God? But these people were faithful, and they're examples to us, even serving at the highest levels, right? How can you be honest in doing your work, your business, government business also, and yet keeping the law of God? This chapter is a testament to that kind of a life that Daniel lived. And so because he heard so much good about Daniel, he must have interviewed him personally. And he also knew that Daniel was very old. You have to think before you appoint an 85-year-old man, right, to such a high position. But yet he found him so capable, so effective, even at that age, to oversee as a governor. So much so that in number 4, what is written here? So number 3, then Daniel distinguished himself above the other governors and satraps because an excellent spirit was in him, and the king was thinking of setting him over the whole realm, right? Making him prime minister, just like how Pharaoh made Joseph to be the prime minister of Egypt. Like that, the king was thinking of making Daniel the prime minister of the Babylonian region, above all the other governors, right? And because an excellent spirit was with him. This word excellent spirit was in him was used right from the time of King Nebuchadnezzar, when Daniel was a teenager. The Bible keeps on telling us, right? He found him to have an excellent spirit, right? Spirit of the gods. When Belshazzar's mother wanted to recommend Daniel, I know of Daniel who has an excellent spirit in him, right? So his attitude, his behavior, his humility, and his efficiency though he came as a slave, right? Maybe there was nobody else who rose to that kind of rank. All the other governors and satraps, I'm sure, were local people, Babylonians. And these other governors must be so jealous of Daniel. Who is this guy? He came as a slave. How can he even be equal to us? But now the king is thinking of promoting him even above us. Right? And so they were filled with hatred and jealousy towards Daniel. Right? And so can somebody read 4 and 5? What did those governors do? The governors and some of the satraps also were unhappy. Why? Because some of them were expecting promotions maybe, right? And these governors also went and influenced them that the king is thinking of making Daniel above all of us. Not right. It should not happen. So all of them conspired. Okay, 4 and 5.
అందుకు ఆ ప్రధానులను అధిపతులను రాజ్యపాలన విషయంలో దానియేలు మీద ఏదైనా ఒక నింద మోపవలనని ఉండి తగిన హేతువు కనిపెట్టుచుండిరి గాని దానియేలు నమ్మకస్తుడై ఏ నేరమైనను ఏ తప్పైనను చేయువాడు కాడు గనుక దానియేలులో తప్పైనను లోపమైనను కనుగొనలేకపోయిరి. అందుకు ఆ మనుష్యులు అతని దేవుని పద్ధతి విషయమందే గాని మరి ఏ విషయమందును అతనిలో లోపము కనుగొనలేమనుకొనిరి.
Thank you. You see here it says, governors and satraps, they were seeking to find some charge against Daniel concerning what? The kingdom. Concerning his work, concerning his business, but they could not find any charge or fault because he was faithful. Number one, or there was no fault, no error that was found in him. It is so strange. You know, when you look at the political scenario nowadays in any country, if you know, at that level, it is very easy to find some fault. At some point, they must have made some mistake, right? So it is very easy to pinpoint. Look at and you know, Daniel has been in public life now for so long. These governors were looking, and they are also in a very high position. They can also get the records and everything of Daniel. They also went and reviewed whatever Daniel did. They have access to everything. They are also in very high positions. They can investigate whatever they want to do. So they wanted to find something wrong, maybe in some financial transaction that Daniel did. You know, at that level, he was traveling a lot. He was probably in charge of purchases. He was probably in charge of so many other transactions. So they were going and looking in all those areas. In whatever he was in charge, was there any dishonesty? Right? They were looking thoroughly into all his transactions. No error, no fault. Right? Error and fault, there is difference, right? Fault, mistakes, corruption, right? Those things you know and you do. Errors, sometimes you just don't know. Even that was not there. Right? Without him knowing, also committing an error also was not there. He was just faithful. He was perfect. They just could not find anything. And they came to a conclusion. If we look at his work with respect to the kingdom, we have looked enough. We will not be able to find anything. But after investigating Daniel so much, they found out one thing about him, that he is faithful not only to the kingdom, but faithful also to his God. They observed his lifestyle, right? What is it that he does? Where does he go on? Or what is this thing on Sabbath? He goes, he takes rest. He doesn't work on that particular day. Right? His worship style, all of that they observe very carefully. And so they came to a conclusion. The law of the kingdom, we will not be able to find anything. The only thing that we can only find, what does it say, 5? Then these men said, we shall not find any charge against this Daniel unless we find it against him concerning the law of whose God? His God. Right? So what does that mean? Does it mean that we can only find fault with him that he violated the law of his God? No. Because if Daniel violated the law of his God, how will that benefit these people? Right? You get my point? If he did not keep the law of his own God, for example, if he broke the Sabbath, just as an example, is he breaking the law of the kingdom? No, he's breaking his own God's law. How will that affect? Why would the king care about that? The only way concerning the law of his God means where the law of the kingdom contradicts the law of his God. That is the only chance that we have. And then now they looked at all the laws of the kingdom and then the law that he was following, and they could not come up with even, they couldn't find even one law that he was practicing that was violating the law of the kingdom. So the only thing that they can do is create a law that would contradict the law of his God. And so with that in their mind, they studied what Daniel did every day. And they knew that Daniel was, the king was considering making Daniel the topmost person above all of them, just below the king. And therefore, the king had a favorable opinion about Daniel. And so anything that they do, any plot that they do has to be very concrete and planned very well, executed very well. Otherwise, they know they will be in trouble. You cannot play around with the king there. Right? So it has to be meticulously planned and perfectly executed. And so they took their time to come up with a plan, a plot as to how is it that we can trap Daniel and somehow bring some contradiction between what he is doing and the law of the land. And so what do? Let's go to 6 to 9. Yeah. 6 to 9.
కాబట్టి ఆ ప్రధానులను అధిపతులను రాజునొద్దకు సందడిగా కూడి వచ్చి ఇట్లనరి, రాజగు దర్యావేషు చిరంజీవివై ఎందువు కాక. రాజ్యపు ప్రధానులు, సేనాధిపతులు, అధిపతులు, మంత్రులు, సంస్థానాధిపతులు అందరూ కూడి రాజుకు ఖండితమైన చట్టము స్థిరపరిచి దానిని శాసనముగా చాటింపజేయనట్లు యోచన చేసిరి. ఎట్లనగా 30 దినముల వరకు నీ యొద్ద తప్ప మరి ఏ దేవుని యొద్దనైనను మానవుని యొద్దనైనను ఎవడును ఏ మనవియు చేయకూడదు. ఎవడైనను చేసిన ఎడల వాడు సింహముల గుహలో పడద్రోయబడను. రాజా, ఈ ప్రకారముగా రాజు శాసనం ఒకటి పుట్టించి మాదీయుల యొక్కయు పారసీకుల యొక్కయు పద్ధతిని అనుసరించి స్థిరముగు శాసనముగా ఉండునట్లు దాని మీద సంతకము చేయమని మనవి చేసిరి. కాగా రాజుకు దర్యావేషు శాసనము వ్రాయించి సంతకము చేసెను.
Thank you. So it says these governors and satraps all came before the king. Now, not all 120 must have come. If everybody comes, the king will suspect that something is going on because among them Daniel won't be there. Right? So I'm pretty sure they took a selected few people and went there and said to him, King Darius, live forever. All the governors of the kingdom and administrators and satraps, the counselors and advisors, all have consulted together to establish one law, royal statute, to create one law. Is that truth or false? It's obviously false because he's saying all the governors of the kingdom. Did they consult Daniel? Right? Will Daniel ever agree to such a thing? But here itself is a lie. They said everybody we consulted. Everybody is in agreement with this. Even before telling what it is, first they have created a impression in the mind of the king that whatever we are going to propose has the approval of everybody, all your leadership team. We are all bringing up this proposal to you. Right? What is the proposal? There should be a royal decree that whoever petitions any god or man for 30 days except you, O king, shall be cast into the lion's den. Right? What does that mean? You should not be worshipping, you should not be bowing down to any other god or man for 30 days. Right? Now, what is this new thing that they brought? Why would the king ever agree to such a thing? See, in those days, the Persians, for example, if they had brought this to Cyrus, Cyrus was known to be a very good king, Persian king. He would have never agreed to such a thing, because in the Persian culture, this thing of worshipping the king and all of this was not there. But it was there in the Median culture. If you look at history books about the culture of Media, they had certain gods, and they used to allocate certain days for exclusive worship of certain gods. Sun god, tree god, whatever they had, especially sun god that they had, and so many people, the sun worship has been there for a long time, right? Worshipping creation rather than creator. So they used to have exclusive time for that, and 30 days was a standard time, right? Like a month, to just worship one particular deity, because they wanted to give focus to that person. So they brought a law which this Median king was used to. He knows such a thing. He will not have any questions on it, because in his culture that exists, right? And they also had, where Median culture, where kings themselves were placed at the level of gods. That kind of respect was given to them, right? And so when we are petitioning 30 days, we are doing it to you, meaning that 30-day worship that you used to do to other gods, we are just, because he's just there in the first year, right? So they are just trying to elevate him, flatter him, right? And so the king saw nothing wrong. We used to do this in Media, we used to do this for other gods, 30 days. Now these people don't have those other gods here, and I am a new king. This is my first year. They want to show me that respect. He did not see anything wrong with it. For 30 days, if they want to only petition me, he did not read into the fine print. What is only petition? What could be the other exceptions to this one? He never thought about that. See, he's still in his first year. And so they took advantage of all of that. And then, this lion's den, those days, animal hunting was very, very popular among the kings. They used to go into the jungles and hunt animals, and then they bring those animals back if they're alive and keep them in the kingdom in cages as a show of what they are capable of. When other kings come, they see, I went and I was able to hunt all these big wild animals. And sometimes they used to give gifts, sometimes send some wild animals from one place to another place, right? And then watch them during their entertainment time. But there is no record previously of throwing somebody, capital punishment, execution by throwing them into the lion's den. This was very, very exceptional. And you can look through, you will not find many examples of this. This was an extreme barbaric case, right? So why would the king ever approve such a thing? Right? Even in the case where he thinks it's okay, why would he even approve such a thing? The only explanation is he did not think much of the law first in order to give thought to the consequence. You get my point, right? Why would? Because he knew that when you are communicating the decree to everybody, they will also communicate the consequence. Why would anybody take a chance and not do? It's only for 30 days, right? And I am the king. So it is almost impossible for anybody to be ending up in that situation. And so he did not really give thought. And when they brought a proposal, he just accepted that proposal. But in the law of Medians and Persians, the law once signed as a decree cannot be altered even by the king. Right? That is also in the law. And they also knew that part. And so you see here it says, now, O king, establish the decree and sign the writing so that it cannot be changed, according to the law of the Medes and the Persians. Right? Now, though we are Babylonians, you came and took over. So your law now applies to our land. According to your law, you sign a decree and that cannot be changed. You see all the planning that went through. They have researched how the laws of the Medes and Persians work. And then they brought this proposal and they made it very airtight in a way that, you sign it in a way that it cannot be altered. It cannot be changed. Right? Once again, Darius did not see anything wrong with this. Why would he ever want to change it? Right? So that is why he went ahead. Therefore, King Darius signed the written decree. For 30 days, everybody should worship only the king. Right? What was their plot? During the time that they were observing Daniel, one thing they observed in Daniel, because they were following him secretly to his house, to the temple where he would go to pray. He would go 3 times a day to his house and then open the door, the window. There was a window towards that pointed towards Jerusalem. Right? Daniel came from Jerusalem. Though the temple is not there anymore, Jerusalem was, that's his hometown. Right? That's what he was missing. And that's what he still considered holy city. And so he used to open the window 3 times and pray, facing that city of Jerusalem. That's what they observed. And so they brought this law, right? Why 30 days? Why not 2-3 days? Right? They figured, they did not know how strong was the resolve of Daniel. Right? They thought maybe if we just give it for 3-4 days, he will maybe close his window, or maybe those 3-4 days he won't do it. So just to be safe, let us do it for 30 days. I don't know how long they observed Daniel. Maybe they observed him for 2 or 3 months. Who knows, right? They observed him and faithfully, not even one day, not even missing one day, every day, 3 times he did that. But they wanted to be safe. So they said 30 days. Let's see if he lasts 30 days. Right? Few days, maybe he will somehow skip it. Right? What is there in just closing the window? So what did they do? Now when Daniel knew, okay, from 10 to 10 and 11, please. Yeah, I'm sorry. 10 and 11. Yeah. 10, 11 and 12.
ఇట్టి శాసనము సంతకము చేయబడినని దానియేలు తెలుసుకొనినను అతడు తన ఇంటికి వెళ్ళి యథాప్రకారముగా అనుదినము ముమ్మారు మోకాళ్ళుని తన ఇంటి పైగది కిటికీలు యెరూషలేము తట్టునకు తెరవబడి ఉండగా తన దేవునికి ప్రార్థన చేయుచు ఆయనను స్తుతించుచు వచ్చెను. ఆ మనుష్యులు గుంపు కూడి వచ్చి దానియేలు తన దేవునికి ప్రార్థన చేయుటయు ఆయనను బ్రతిమాలుకొనుటయు చూచి రాజు సముఖమునకు వచ్చి, శాసన విషయమును బట్టి రాజా, 30 దినముల వరకు నీకు తప్ప మరి ఏ దేవునికైనాను మానవునికైనాను ఎవడును ప్రార్థన చేయకూడదు. ఎవడైనా చేసిన ఎడల వాడు సింహముల గుహలో పడద్రోయబడునని నీవు ఆజ్ఞ ఇయ్యలేదా అని మనవి చేయగా, రాజు మాదీయుల యొక్కయు పారసీకుల యొక్కయు పద్ధతి ప్రకారము ఆ సంగతి స్థిరము, ఎవరును దాన్ని రద్దుపరచజాలరని.
Thank you. When Daniel when the decree is there, it is pronounced to everybody. And obviously Daniel heard it as well, and he knew exactly why this writing was signed, right? But he went home. He knew the risks that are there with continuing with his tradition. He knew what was the plot against him. right? Daniel could have easily closed the window. All he had to do was close that window, right? He knew that they were observing him, but yet, see, Daniel, he did not. The reason why in this particular case, what did he do? He went to his upper room, and again with his windows open towards Jerusalem, he knelt down on his knees 3 times that day and prayed and gave thanks before his God, as was his custom. As was his custom. Right? It was not that he would have sinned if he had closed the door. God never asked him to open the door and then pray. That God would be angry with him that he closed the door. No, that is not the point, right? It is the motive inside the heart. Right? What would you be willing to give up in order to compromise or in order to think that you would be safe? Right? If there was a custom that Daniel was following, right, in order to show his allegiance to God, just because there was an adversary decree or law against it, he did not want to go back, which means he put the priorities higher. His loyalty and faithfulness to God was higher than his adherence to the law or his loyalty to the kingdom. Right? Once he compromises and then makes that change, basically his loyalty to the kingdom was more important than what he thought about his loyalty towards God. At this point, he may have fully trusted that no matter what happens, God will take care. Right? Or no matter what happens, I will still keep doing what I am doing. How will my conscience let me remain free if I make this compromise? Right? He knew what is the consequence also. But in his heart, he remained true to his conscience. And if there was something that he was following, which he felt kept him in the presence of God, he felt that if he made a compromise, that will affect his relationship with God. He didn't want that. Right? And so he stood strong. And that is why there is a beautiful song called Dare to Be a Daniel. Dare to stand alone. Right? Dare to be a Daniel, dare to stand alone. He was literally alone in that kingdom. Right? Standing firm for his God. How many people can stand like that? Right? In the face of knowing that you will be in trouble. It need not be lion's den. For us, there are just so many things that are much less complicated or much less dangerous than a lion's den. But in such small situations also, we just go along with the world just because we don't want to face that consequence. The main thing that people don't like is to be alone, standing on your own and being singled out. People prefer to be part of a group. And then, so they just make a compromise and then go along with the world. They don't like to be seen standing alone with a different point of view. All right? That is how the world is today. Right? That's why Jesus, when he was there on this earth, he said, narrow is the gate that goes to heaven, broad is the gate that goes to destruction. Broad is the gate, broad is the way. Everybody travels on the broad way. It is easier. It is like a highway. Everybody likes to go on that. No obstacles, nothing. Keep going. Everybody is going. I don't have to do anything. Just follow the crowd. Narrow is the way. You have to find that way. It is narrow. There might be difficulties on that, but in the end, it reaches to eternal life. Daniel chose that way. Right? Instead of going with all the others and having a safe life, he knew he had only a few years left in his life. Even at that age, he purposed in his heart that he will not reduce the importance of his reverence to God. I have been doing this for 70 years now, and because of this law, I will make this compromise? No. I will continue doing no matter what, because I trust in my God. The God that brought me here, the God that elevated me, whatever his will, let it happen. And these people were watching from outside, One would think, after they saw him the first time, they would have ran and gone to the king. No, they were there whole day. They watched him do it 3 times. Whole day they were there. Why they have to do it 3 times? Even once, if he violates, they can go and run to the king. See, those days there were no cell phones or things to record and then go and show that, right? They had to rely on witnesses. And so they took as many witnesses as possible. Some witnesses in the morning, some in the afternoon, some in the evening, so that if necessary, they can testify to the king. Yes, we saw Daniel. Yes, we saw him. And so they had to build a solid case against Daniel. Daniel is no more an ordinary citizen. He was a governor whom the king was thinking of promoting. And when you take a charge against that high official, it has to be a very solid proof. You need proper proof, evidence against that. And so they waited all day. They saw him do 3 times. And after they saw him the 3rd time, they all went to the king. And then what did they say? They did not start with, King, we saw this Daniel. What did they do? They found him praying and doing supplication before the king. Then when they went before the king and they spoke concerning the king's decree, they first reminded the king. What did they remind him? Have you not signed a decree that every man who have you not signed a decree that every man who petitions any god or man within 30 days, except you, O king, shall be cast into the lion's den? The king must be thinking, it is only yesterday I signed the decree. You're already here. Right? Did you not sign this one? He said, yes. The king answered and said, the thing is true, according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which does not alter. Yes, it is true. I have signed it, and I know that it is a decree that, according to the law of the Median and Persians, once I sign it, it cannot be changed. Now they bring the charge. So they answered and said, that Daniel, who is one of the captives from Judah. I'm also reminding you who he is. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. 13 to 15, please. Can someone read?
అందుకు వారు చెరపట్టబడిన యూదులలోనున్న ఆ దానియేలు నిన్నే గాని నీవు పుట్టించిన శాసనంనే గాని లక్ష్య పెట్టక అనుదినము ముమ్మారు ప్రార్థన చేయుచు వచ్చుచున్నాడనిరి. రాజు ఈ మాట విని బహుగా వ్యాకులపడి దానియేలును రక్షింపవలెనని తన మనస్సు దృఢము చేసుకొని సూర్యుడు అస్తమించే వరకు అతన్ని విడిపించుటకు ప్రయత్నము చేశాను. ఆ మనుష్యులు దీన్ని చూచి రాజు సన్నిధికి సందడిగా కూడి వచ్చి, రాజు స్థిరపరిచిన ఏ శాసనమును గాని తీర్మానమును గాని ఎవడునూ రద్దుపరచజాలడు. ఇది మాదీయులకును పారసీలకును విధి అని తమరు తెలుసుకొనవలెనని.
When they answered and said that Daniel, who is one of the captives from Judah, actually, he does not show due regard to you. He doesn't respect you, King, O King, for or for the decree that you have signed. He didn't respect you, or he didn't respect the decree that you have signed. And he is making petitions 3 times a day. They didn't tell anything else. He is doing some petitions. I don't know to whom, some man, some god, but he is doing it. Basically, it violates that law that you just signed. Maybe they said we were accidentally passing that way. Or maybe they said somebody else saw him. See, here are all the witnesses. And so they made up some story and they told him. But the moment they told him that, and they came back in one day with that, the king knew exactly what these people were after. Right? Why they came to him yesterday? Why did they make this decree? Why did they flatter him? Why did they make him sign this decree? Everything he understood now. Because he knew about Daniel and his how he worships the living God. And because Daniel must have told him. Right? He may not have known about the specific times that Daniel goes and prays and all of that. But he knew that he worships the living God. That Daniel, I'm sure, told him. So all of that may have come back into his mind. And then he regretted so much. These people have trapped me. They made me sign this decree. And I know that it was a plot against Daniel. And so the king, when he heard these words, he was greatly displeased. Not displeased with Daniel, displeased with himself. And but he purposed, he really wanted to save Daniel. He set his heart on Daniel to deliver Daniel. And so he tried and tried and tried till the end of the day, till the going down of the sun. He tried and labored. A king laboring, right? So he was looking into any way. Can there be, in the law, can there be an amendment, like how an amendment to our constitution? Can there be made some changes? Can there be some exceptions? Is there some way, some loophole in that where I can somehow say Daniel did not, this did not apply to Daniel, right? Daniel, maybe he didn't pray directly, something like that. He must have called all his lawyers and advocates and everyone and find me some way to find something that I can save Daniel with. But the more he was trying, those people also were there. You see, they came with a meticulous plan. And so the text of the law that they wrote was very, very clear, because they wrote the text keeping in mind the tradition of Daniel. And so they said, the text is very clear. The law is very clear, and he violated that law. And so he was not able to alter that law, and he was not able to save Daniel. So with great disappointment, with great regret, what did he do? Can somebody read 16 and 17? See, before that, the king, as he was trying, again those governors reminded him. Then these men approached the king and said to the king, "No, king, that it is the law of the Medes and the Persians that no decree or statute which the king established may be changed." Right? You cannot do it. And so what happened? 16 and 17, please.
అంతట రాజు ఆజ్ఞేయుగా బంట్రోతులు దానియేలును పట్టుకొని పోయి సింహముల గుహలో పడద్రోయగా రాజు, నీవు అనుదినము తప్పక సేవించుచున్న నీ దేవుడే నిన్ను రక్షించునని దానియేలుతో చెప్పింది. వారు ఒక రాయి తీసుకొని వచ్చి ఆ గుహ ద్వారమున వేసి దాన్ని మూసిరి. మరియు దానియేలును గూర్చి రాజు యొక్క తీర్మానము మారునేమో అని రాజు ముద్రను అతని అధికారుల ముద్రను వేసి దాన్ని ముద్రించారు.
The king now very reluctantly, he had no other choice. He gave the command to bring Daniel and then let him face the consequence of throwing him into the lion's den. And these people made sure that the lions were hungry enough that they will devour Daniel immediately. Right? And so they brought Daniel and cast him into a den down. They put some lions there, and then they lowered Daniel into that. But you see the words of the king, a heathen king, right? But who has been touched by the life of Daniel. The words of a heathen king. But the king spoke to Daniel, saying to Daniel, "Your God, whom you serve continually, he what? He didn't say, I hope he will deliver. Right? He did not say, let me see if he will deliver. What did he say? He will deliver you." You see how the Spirit of God was working inside a heathen king, Darius? These are the words that were heard by everybody who were there. All of these people came to witness throwing Daniel into the lion's den because they wanted to make sure. They knew that the king was trying somehow to save him. And if they go away from the king, they thought maybe the king will take him up to the lion's den, and there he will send him off to some other country just to save him. Right? And then they will never know what happened. So they all were there. And then, but the king spoke loud and clear and said to Daniel, "Daniel, your God whom you serve continually." Right? That is the operative word, continually. Even a day he did not give a break just to, adhere to the law. That God whom you serve so faithfully, so continually, I'm sure he is going to deliver. He will deliver you. And having said that, then a stone was brought and laid at the mouth of the den, to be sure, no escape for Daniel. And the king sealed it with his own signet ring and with the signet of his lords, that the purpose concerning Daniel might not be changed. Right? As to why Daniel was put inside that. So it was a mark of the seal. Right? That was there all the time. Right? Even during the time of Jesus, when he was placed in the tomb, the sign, the ring of Pilate was there. Right? Done by the authority of the king. Okay, so now Daniel is in the lion's den. It doesn't take very long. It should only take a minute or two for everything to be over. Right? And so, but, see what happens that night from 18 to 23.
అంతట రాజు తన నగరునకు వెళ్ళి ఆ రాత్రి అంతా ఉపవాసం ఉండి నాట్య వాయిద్యములను జరగనీయలేదు. అతనికి నిద్ర పట్టకపోయెను. తెల్లవారుజామున రాజు వేగిరమై లేచి సింహముల గుహ దగ్గరికి త్వరపడిపోయెను. అతడు గుహ దగ్గరకు రాగానే దుఃఖ స్వరముతో దానియేలును పిలిచి, జీవము గల దేవుని సేవకుడవైన దానియేలు, నిత్యము నీవు సేవించుచున్న నీ దేవుడు నిన్ను రక్షింపగలిగెనా అని అతనిని అడిగాను. అందుకు దానియేలు, రాజు చిరకాలము జీవించునుగాక. నేను నా దేవుని దృష్టికి నిర్దోషినిగా కనబడితిని గనుక ఆయన తన దూత నంపించి సింహములు నాకు ఏ హానియు చేయకుండా వాటి నోళ్లు మూయించెను. రాజా, నీ దృష్టికి నేను నేరము చేసిన వాడను కాను గదా అనెను. రాజు ఇందును గూర్చి అతి సంతోషభరితుడై దానియేలును గుహలో నుండి పైకి తీయుడని ఆజ్ఞ ఇయ్యగా వంట్రోతులు దానియేలును బయటికి తీసిరి. అతడు తన దేవుని యందు భక్తి గలవాడైనందున అతనికి ఏ హానియు కలగలేదు.
Amen. That night when the king, after shutting down the lion's den with a stone, he went back to his palace and he spent the entire night fasting. Right? Daniel was, is just a person in his kingdom, but he liked him so much. More so, he felt that, he himself was responsible for it because he didn't see it coming. Right? He liked Daniel so much, he was losing Daniel. Right? That was his fear. But somewhere in his mind, why would he, after the night, still be anxious? He knew that the power of the God of Daniel, right? He was just wanting to confirm that, right? And that entire night had to pass before anything can be confirmed, right? So he spent the entire night fasting and no musicians were brought before him. Also, his sleep went for him. All night, no music. Usually they used to play music so that the king can sleep. No music, no sleep at all. No food, he was fasting. He was just wanting to run in the morning. And the king arose very early in the morning and went in haste to the lion. Then he ran before anybody to the den of lions. And when he came to the den, he cried out with a lamenting voice, with almost a crying voice. He shouted to Daniel, right? What did he say? Daniel, servant of what? The living God. You see that night, what happened to the king? Who told him all of this? How God impressed upon the king. Sometimes God did not stop Daniel from going to the lion's den, right? Because he wanted to accomplish something even greater in the life of Daniel, right? Which would result in the change of heart of this king also. So much so that he said, Daniel, servant of the living God. Acknowledging that your God is the living God. I know that your God is the living God. Has your God whom you serve continually been able to deliver you from the lions? I want confirmation. I want confirmation from you, Daniel. The very fact that he went and he was calling out, right, to that one, expecting a confirmation from Daniel. Then Daniel said, "O king, live forever. My God has sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths, so that they have not hurt me, because I was found innocent before him. And also, O king, I have done no wrong before you." Right? Daniel's reply came. And I'm sure the king was just waiting to hear that voice, right, of Daniel. And Daniel replied back, and he said, "O king, live forever. My God has sent his angel." Angel was there, and the angel shut the lions of the mouth. Shut the mouth of the lions. The lions had no power over Daniel. You see, this gives us encouragement that earthly circumstances have no power over us. When divine intervention comes, even if we have a circumstance like a hungry lion, right, they will have zero power over us when God intervenes in our life. The angel can shut the mouth of lions. They can shut any of the difficult situations that we have. It doesn't mean that we won't go to that situation. We will go into that situation. So we should never question God, why am I going through a trial? Because in that trial, he will shut all the mouths for you to see how great our God is, and not just you. In this case, the king of that land also was shown the power of the living God of Daniel. Not just he, the entire kingdom came to know about Daniel. Time and again, God used Daniel. In the time of Nebuchadnezzar, God used him. In the time of Belshazzar, God used him. Now in the time of Darius also, God is using him. Heathen kings who acknowledged God. Wonderful things that were done through Daniel. And he was so overjoyed. What did he do? But before that, what did Daniel say? Because I have been found innocent before God. Why did he do it? I have done nothing wrong against my God. And also, king, I have done nothing wrong before you. I have done nothing wrong before you. But in the priority of doing nothing wrong, which one came first? I have done nothing wrong before my God. That is more important to me. But according to your earthly law also, I have not done anything wrong before you also. Right? You see how it is important for us to stay to stay faithful to God and stay faithful to human authorities as well. Right? But whenever there is a contradiction, God's law takes precedence. Right? Sadly, in this world, we compromise, and then the local laws and the local preferences and local traditions and practices take precedence over what our practices are. Right? But can we dare to be like Daniel, who said, first, I have done nothing wrong before God, and also nothing wrong. This was a plot against me. And that is what the king understood as well. And then he said, king was so glad, and he commanded, you should take Daniel up out of the lion's den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den. I'm sure all the lions were just watching what is going on. No injury whatever was found on him, because he believed in his God. He believed. Even the king also believed in the power of the God of Daniel. Right? No injury whatsoever. And then what did he do? Because he knew about this plot that these others were doing, and he witnessed firsthand the power of the law, power of the God of Daniel. What did he do? See 24.
రాజు ఆజ్ఞ ఇయ్యగా దానియేలు మీద నింద మోపిన ఆ మనుష్యులను వారు తోడుకొని వచ్చి సింహముల గుహలో పడద్రోసిరి. వారిని, వారి కుమారులను, వారి భార్యలను పడద్రోసిరి. వారు ఆ గృహ అడుగునకు రాక మునిపే సింహములు పాలైరి. సింహములు వారి ఎముకలను సహితము పగల కొరికి పొడి చేసెను.
You see, the consequence, right? When they conspire against the God of Daniel, when they conspire against Daniel, God removed them, right? Removed that obstacle and transferred that punishment to those people. What people thought that, why is Daniel going through this? He went through that to make a larger influence, right? But ultimately, when people conspire against God, because this conspiracy was against his God, right? And so this is what is the consequence. Their entire families were thrown into the lion's den, and they were being lowered into the lion's den. Even before they were lowered to the bottom, they were torn into pieces. All of them. Right? And King Darius was so happy and so convinced about the power of the God of Daniel, just like Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar also, there were 3 occasions where he did it. Twice he realized, but he went back to being proud, till God totally humbled him. And after that, he declared in a way like no other. Here also we are seeing King Darius, a heathen king, listening to the hearing about the living God for the first time from Daniel. Look at how he declares the power of the God of Daniel. Please read somebody from 25. What decree does he make? 25 to 28. The law, this is also a decree. It cannot be changed. So this particular law was passed by the Medo-Persian king, Median king Darius. Please, 25 to 28.
అప్పుడు రాజుకు దర్యావేషు లోకమంతటా నివసించు సకల జనులకును రాష్ట్రములకును ఆయా భాషలు మాట్లాడు వారికిని ఇలాగు వ్రాయించెను. మీకు క్షేమాభివృద్ధి కలుగును గాక. నా సముఖమున నియమించినదేమనగా, నా రాజ్యములోని సకల ప్రభుత్వముల యందుండు నివాసులు దానియేలు యొక్క దేవునికి భయపడుచు ఆయన సముఖమున వణుకుచూ ఉండవలెను. ఆయనే జీవము గల దేవుడు, ఆయనే యుగయుగములు ఉండువాడు. ఆయన రాజ్యము నాశనము కానేరదు, ఆయన ఆధిపత్యము తొదమట్టునకున్నను. ఆయన విడిపించువాడును రక్షించుడు వాడునే ఉండి పరమందును భూమి మీదను సూచక క్రియలను ఆశ్చర్య కార్యములను చేయవాడు. ఆయనే సింహముల నోటి నుండి ఈ దానియేలును రక్షించెను అని వ్రాయించెను. ఈ దానియేలు దర్యావేషు ప్రభుత్వ కాలమందును పారసీకుడగు కోరేషు ప్రభుత్వ కాలమందును వర్ధిల్లెను.
Right? So what a wonderful testimony that this king is giving to all the peoples, everybody who is in his kingdom. Peace be to you. I'm making a decree that in every dominion under my kingdom, in all the provinces, everybody must fear and tremble before the God of Daniel. Right? That God, his name is the God of Daniel. Right? He is only the living God. He will steadfast forever. Right? In a way, he is admitting that all the other gods are, merely for namesake. They have zero power. Because he has witnessed his kingdom is the one that shall not be destroyed. See how much of knowledge the Spirit of God has given to Darius. Right? His dominion shall endure to the end. He studied about the God of Daniel, maybe from Daniel. He delivers, he rescues. He saw that firsthand. He works signs and wonders. Right? Coming out of the lion's den is a wonder. In heaven and on earth. You see, he recognized the elevated position of their God in heaven also and in earth. He who has delivered Daniel from the power of the lions. And it says this Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius. After Darius, Cyrus himself took over the kingdom. Right? Even in that time of Darius and Cyrus also, he prospered. God made him prosper. Under every king, he prospered. Though others wanted to put him down, though he was a slave, God was lifting him up. Right? So during his end days also, he was prospering. That is the story of Daniel and how he was rescued by God and as a powerful witness. Right? And that's why God says there will be times where you will go through trials, but even in that time, I am going to be with you. and I'll bring you out on the other side, so much so that you will know and even others will know about my power. And so count it all joy, Paul says, when you're going through trials and challenges. God wants to accomplish something through that. Amen.